Greetings, whiskey flavor junkies. Welcome to Whisky Whistle. I'm your host, Mark, and this is whiskey review number 114. Had to check my notes just to make sure. Today we're going to be looking at a very unique, probably not highly available single malt Scotch whiskey from Scotland. And this one is called Fettercairn. Fettercairn is a Highland single malt Scotch whiskey from the Highland region, I do believe. Yes, it's Highland. Had to check. And, well, it's owned by White and Mackay, who are, in fact, in turn owned by, Emperador, which is a Philippine Philippine Philippine, not cognac, but brandy. Philippine brandy maker who own lots of distilleries around the world, and who in turn are also owned by, where is it now? Alliance Global Group. Okay, so that's quite the complicated, we'll call it, ownership of this distillery. Anyway, we're going to start with getting it poured. Really interesting packaging. This is the Fettercairn Fior. Okay, it's 42% ABV, and unfortunately I tried to rip off a sticker here, and I ended up pulling off a bit of the beautiful packaging. Anyway, very lustrous, very unique. They've chosen a brassy color for the font, and well, given the color of the whiskey also, can you see that? It really looks nice. Probably one of the coolest bottles that I have. Okay, and a great wood cork, interesting foil, which is quite nice, very much in line with the packaging, which has kind of a Baroque, it's not quite paisley, what's that called? Anyway, a little bit of an interesting pattern to the packaging. And Fettercairn, it's in the Highland region, located in the township of Fettercairn, which itself is in Aberdeenshire. Okay, it was founded in 1824. Let's get this poured. By a fellow by the name of Alexander Ramsay. Okay. 42% ABV, as I mentioned, and on the label it clearly says it has color added. Whoops, almost. Whoa. Well, we'll enjoy that one too. When you hold it from the bottom, it's quite heavy. That's better for the view, but you end up pouring too much sometimes. Pardon me. At the tail end of this cold, still have the odd cough that comes through. I apologize for coughing. We'll let that get a little bit of breathing time. Okay, and since this is a new distillery for me, I want to tell you about it. So bear with me before we get onto the nosing, okay? 1824, Alexander Ramsay founds this distillery. And wealthy man, obviously, the owner of the Fask Estate, Fasque, and converted a corn mill into a distillery. And this was one of the, actually I believe this was the second licensed distillery in Scotland after the beginning of the Excise Act. So quite a long history. 1829, the fellow, Mr. Ramsay went bankrupt, sold the distillery to the Gladstone family, and they hung on to it for quite a long time. And 1926, it was mothballed until 1939, and it just narrowly escaped demolition in 1938, interestingly. And 1938 sold to an American company called National Distillers of America. Okay, by a fellow named Joseph Hobbs, who worked for Train and McIntyre. Okay. And then after that, it changed hands so many times, I'm not even going to bother mentioning any of those hands. Fast forward 1973, this is when White and Mackay picked up the distillery. Okay, and so there it stayed. Then White and Mackay itself ended up getting bought and sold by a few companies. And as I mentioned, Emperador 2014 bought White and Mackay for the incredible sum of 430 million pounds sterling. Emperador now owned by Alliance Global Group. Okay, they have 2 wash and 2 spirit stills. They have a maximum output of 2.2 million liters of pure alcohol per year. Okay, so when you think about that in terms of 40%, 42% ABV whiskey, then you're going to more than double it. So we're talking like 5 million liters of Fettercairn being sold in bottles. Okay. Of course, a lot of this will go into blends as well, and it should, because this is a highly potent single malt. Okay. Anything else? There's a really unique feature with their stills. Their spirit stills have an irrigator that sprays cool water on the what is it called? On the neck. Okay, and I've put that here. You'll see that coming through. There's a great photo from whiskyspeller.com. Whiskey Speller. I think Thomas Speller, and there's the missus as well. They both blog about whiskey. So Whiskey Speller, it's coming. It'll be coming pretty soon there. They irrigate the outside of the still with water to cool it down. What does that do? The heavier elements, as they are moving up from the wash, from the low wines. Okay, the low wines, they are heating up, and then you're getting some vapors coming up. Okay, and it's a mix of all kinds of vapors. The heavier ones, because of the cold water, end up condensing and returning to the liquid. Okay, that way only the lightest and the most delicate spirit ends up getting up to the top of the still, where it condenses down the line arm and becomes your new make spirit, or white dog. Okay, the white spirit that comes out of the still. Okay, so that's really cool. No, we're back at the front. I probably missed it there. I should have pointed out. I didn't. You can see it shortly. Okay. All right, let's get on to the nosing of Fettercairn Fior. All right. We will have a very short advertisement right here. Welcome back. Fettercairn Fior, 42% ABV. I should mention this is unchill filtered. And how do I know? In the booklet that is provided with the whiskey. Very nice booklet. Always great to have that kind of thing accompany the whiskey here. Okay, so combination of various vintages, strength 42% ABV, non-chill filtered. Okay, so it says it right there. It's in the box. It's out with the consumer. Okay, so it's unchill filtered whiskey. And this says combination of various vintages. What I do know, it's 15% heavily peated whiskey that is matured in ex-bourbon, first fill ex-bourbon barrels. Okay, that's number one. And then it has an amount, a proportion of 14, 15-year-old whiskey that is also in the mix here. Okay, so a good mix of interesting whiskey there. So what happens with this as I rub my hands in anticipation? Because I know I'm going to be trying this amazing whiskey again. Yes, it's amazing. I'm feeling like probably there'll be lots of people out there in the whiskey community, in the whiskey fabric as it's known, that may say, hey, White Mackay, what have you done with this? You shouldn't have done this. You should have done it on the up and up. And what they may be complaining about is the added color, because we're looking at basically the color of brand new pennies, maybe even darker than that. Okay, and that's largely in part, I should say, in part due to the added color that's added. Okay. Anyway, probably the next releases from Fettercairn are going to be more natural because the consumer base is now rather educated, okay? So this one came out, I think, 2010. Okay, onto the nose. Very complex. This is a huge nose. There's peat, there's fruit, there's leather, and all kinds of tea bags and coffee and chocolate going on here. Okay? The list I've written here is just ridiculous, and I'm going to read them all to you. Very complex, spice, wood smoke, peat, but it's tempered. It is kind of hidden in there, okay? My mother-in-law tried this, and she does not like peated whiskey. She liked this one, okay? Burnt almond, walnuts, chestnuts, dark raisins, cherry chocolate, coffee grinds, the spent ones, orange compote with the rinds, candy-covered licorice. Incredible. Probably one of the finest noses that I have encountered, to be honest. On to the taste. Cheers all. A little more peatiness comes through on the palate and the finish. Now that my mouth is kind of acclimatized to it, let me try again and I'll tell you about the flavors here. Nuttiness and dark fruits. I wrote here, huge fruity sweetness, then dry. Ripe fruits, baked fruits, some salted nuts, some licorice, the sweet kind, not the salty ones. What else? Viinatarta, okay, the Icelandic prune cake, layered prune cake, which is also, well, it's all throughout Scandinavia. Viinatarta is its name in Icelandic. Danish, what is it called? Is it called Laukær? I forget. Anyway, really nice. Deep, deep, dark fruits going on there. Lots of nuts. Chestnuts, as I mentioned. Chocolate is here. How about the finish? Sweet and dry. Okay. You've got all those deep fruits present. Licorice is there. Some toffee. Coffee also. Chocolate. I wrote here also orange zest. Nutty, malty. and some wafts of peatiness coming through. And again, this is not the peat that you would say, oh, I don't like, the people who don't like peat would say, oh, I don't like it. They may not recognize this. But once you become familiar with what unpeated malt tastes like, then you'll begin to recognize that the majority of Scotch whisky have some peat content. It's just a matter of the amount, okay? With time, on the nose, you'll get more coffee, more toffee, and in fact, coffee-flavored toffees, like the wrapped ones. In Canada, we get Cares toffees. It has also a very rich, supple mouthfeel, and I think that's owing in part to the non-chill filtered production method. We'll add some water. I have a healthy 30 plus milliliters. I can probably add at least, not quite, I'm not going to add a full half teaspoon here, okay? So it's about maybe a third, maybe about 1.5 to 1 3/4 of a milliliter. Okay. Let that mix up here. I bought this in Manitoba, in Winnipeg. It arrived on shelves round about when I got there, the beginning of July, mid-July-ish. And I bought one. I was thinking of buying two. I think they were $89. So I thought, that's a bit much to buy two. So I didn't buy two. I just bought the one. And now they're sold out. And it probably took about a week, maybe 10 days before they were gone. So there is definitely a thirst out there for unique malts, for new brands, for the, let's say, the lesser known brands that should be better known. This brand deserves a lot more, let's call it press than it gets. Anyway, so Winnipeg, if you managed to get one, that's great. If you didn't, probably some of the whiskey bars in town did get a hold of it. So go and try it and tell me what you think. Okay, we've got that mixed up, I would say. We'll get on to the nosing now with water. And before that, one more short advertisement right here. Welcome back to Whisky Whistle Fettercairn Fior, 42% ABV with a little bit of water added. This is non-chill filtered, however it does have a bit of color added to it. Lots of sherry casks, I believe, are also in the mix, so the amount of coloring may be actually minimal, but I would be just guessing. Okay, how about the nose now? There is more coffee going on here. And a dark roasted coffee at that. It's kind of like the smell that you get when you walk into Starbucks when they are really humming with customers. The peat is a little bit more pronounced with water. Okay. More coffee, more toffee, chocolate cherry, a bit of leather, and that hint of peat coming through. Okay, let's get on to the taste. Cheers all, and a cheers to Mr. David Dweig, who is the master distiller here at Fettercairn Distillery. Good job with this one. Keep it up. Cheers. A touch more peatiness. The wood really comes out here now. the bourbon with that first fill bourbon, cinnamon, all kinds of cinnamon, vanilla flavors coming through now. Okay, some nutmeg. Licorice is increased here, heightened licorice notes. More leather also. It's very rich, very oily. The finish, what was that now? There's a touch of mintiness now, kind of like a rye. Very dry finish. Some marzipan, but marzipan baked into a pastry. Heightened flavors of nuttiness and sweetness. Orange zest is still there. And there's a little bit of a sharpness that I am going to say I could do without. That may be from the added caramel. But you know what? Overall, outstanding. Overall, one of my favorite NAS whiskeys, if not one of my favorite whiskeys altogether to date. Okay, so I wrote here, possibly one of the most interesting NAS, non-age stated whiskeys I've had. And the Whisky Whistle whiskey score for Fettercairn Fior is going to be 89 out of 100. Excuse me, 89 out of 100. That's the Whisky Whistle whiskey score for Fettercairn Fior. 42% ABV, bit of color added, but non-chill filtered. Says so in the book. Okay, and the nickname for this one is going to be the Nutty Professor. Okay, the Nutty Professor, perhaps the Eddie Murphy version. Because he is a very funny character, okay, and a wild character. Out of the blue sometimes. I love Eddie Murphy. I've loved him since SNL, and I think I'm missing a few of his recent movies. They say some of them have bombed. I'm going to watch them anyway. Okay. All right, so the Nutty Professor, Fettercairn Fior, 89 out of 100. I really hope you enjoyed the review. Please share this with your friends who are looking for something new. Go and find this. I highly recommend it. It's not that expensive. It's very well made. It's got more than just the standard 40%. I wish it were 43 or 46 or even higher. That would be nice. But I'm happy that at least they've put it at 42%. So hats off to White and Mackay and David Dweck, the master distiller. Good job with this one. Share the review. Please like it, and don't forget to subscribe. You can click the link right down there in the corner, okay? And we will stay tuned. I will stay tuned. I'll be doing whiskey review number 115 right away, and that'll be coming in a few days' time for you. So make sure you tune in next time. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.